Year 6 and welcome to Thursday's reading lesson. My computer's playing ball today, so you've got my video in the corner as normal. Now I want to focus on the text from yesterday. So hopefully, yesterday was quite an independent session, so hopefully you went away and you read it and you either annotated it if you had it printed out or you made some notes about what it meant, just like we usually do together in school. So we had that modelled on Monday, and yesterday you had to do that by yourself. Hopefully you did that. Hopefully you had a go at the vocabulary grid, and the answers were up there yesterday, so you were able to check that. But I wanted to start today's lesson by going through some of the vocabulary and making sure that we're all cool with what it means. Today's lesson is going to be mainly following through here. So we're going to be doing our writing things down through the virtual lesson. Okay, so stick with me and we will do it all together today. So let's have a look at some of these words. So I'll put the definition beside them. So we've got cells, the tiny building blocks of our body. Loads and loads, it says trillions in there, of cells in our body that are made to do lots of different things and come together with the other parts of the body to help our body do all of the wonderful things that it does. We had the word rigid yesterday, so that means strong and firm. It means, in the vocabulary grid, it was the opposite of flexible, so it means it's like your bone here. So while I can bend at the joint, this bone here is rigid. I can't bend that. It's rigid, it's firm, it stays in its one shape. We had two gases. So gases, obviously, we let them out into the air. We can't see them in this case, but they are all around us. So we need oxygen to breathe. We breathe that in. And then our waste product is the carbon dioxide. We breathe that out into the air. We had the word excess, meaning too much of something. And it was about your urinary system. And if you have too much water, then that leaves your body as urine. And when we're doing the text in school, we had lots of laughs about wee and poo. So you might have had that at home as well. And the next word is also linked to that because we had the word expels, and it meant makes leave. And it was talking about poo in that case, expelling the poo from your body, that unwanted food, the waste product from you eating. So we had lots of laughs about that, and maybe you did at home as well. And then the last one, which I know people in school did find a little bit trickier, was that word elaborate. Now, often, elaborate kind of means complex and complicated. It's got many parts. Elaborate can mean like fancy, and it's got a lot going on. So it's a little bit unusual to see it in this case. You might have heard of like an elaborate palace, for example, but this was talking about an elaborate system. So it's a system that's really complicated. It's made up of lots of parts, lots of things coming together. So it is elaborate. Hope that helps if there was any of the words that you weren't sure of yesterday. So today then, I want to start off with a really simple matching activity. So pause the video, match up the system to the organ that it involves. Okay, hopefully that's nice and easy for you. So the respiratory system would match to lungs, okay? And that is the system which helps us to breathe. And we should probably all know that our lungs are here in our body, protected by our rib cage, and the bit in the text about the skeleton said how that protects our organs. So the rib cage is a really good example of that. The digestive system, it includes lots and lots of different parts along the way, but the organ here from this list is the large intestine. And it talked about the large intestine in that first text, and then it talked about the digestive system itself in the second one. So you're going to have to bring those two together. And that's to do with the digestion of food, processing the food that goes in your body. And I know that you did study the digestive system in science in year 4. And then we've got the cardiovascular system, which involves your heart. Okay, so well done if you got those right. We're going to think a bit now, as we've looked all week at non-fiction, a little bit more about the author's intent and the impact of the author's choices for the rest of this lesson. So I want to know, what is the intention of a non-fiction text? Now, the word intention means what is a person trying to do? So when someone writes a non-fiction text like this one we've read this week, what's the point? What are they trying to do? So pause and come up with an answer to that question. So the intention of a non-fiction text, especially in this case where we've got a science book, is to educate and inform, okay? It's to teach the person reading it something new, okay? And do you think that that's happened here today? In this week, I think that we have, certainly the children I've been reading with in school, we have learned some new things. So there's some things that we already knew about, but there are some new things as well across those two texts. So they've met their intention, I think. Let's start to think now about impact. So that word impact means the effect that it has on you. So the author's made a choice, and then if we think about the impact of that, what's the result of that choice? How does that impact you? How does that affect you? And we talk about impact of authors' choices in fiction, where we think about the specific words that they've used and how that can help paint a picture in your head, etc. So we've seen that before, but what about the impact in non-fiction? So the first thing I want you to think about is the impact of the short paragraphs. So why is short paragraphs good? How does short paragraphs help you? Pause the video and come up with a little answer about what you think the impact of using short paragraphs for this text was. Okay, so I think that the impact of short paragraphs is that it's easier to read. It's less kind of daunting or scary than a whole page of text. It breaks it up. So with the use of subheadings as well, it makes it really clear what it's talking about, and it separates that knowledge out for you, which is really helpful for when you're processing things in your brain, to have it split into different kind of sections. And it just means that you haven't got too much to read, and that what's there is the really important information. So there's kind of not a lot of extra detail and fluffy bits. It's just the information that you need. And when you're trying to learn something, that is really good. Okay, so another impact question then. What is the impact, in your opinion, of the pictures, the diagrams, the illustrations in this book? Pause and come up with an answer. Okay, I think that really the main impact of the pictures in this particular case are for fun and for humour. Especially we looked at the first one having like the large intestine as like a slide into the sewage. We've got all different kind of images and big images of your body, which obviously help you to understand. They go some way to help you to understand what is written, but we haven't sort of got realistic diagrams with labels and things. So it's not really predominantly for the information. I think it's more for the enjoyment factor and the fun, and it means that the pages look really fun. They look really bright, colourful and inviting, and it brings a little bit of humour to learning something that's quite complicated and important. Okay, last question then, and this is where I will leave you to do a little bit of independent writing, but it will only take a second. So I want you to finalise this lesson and this week, in fact, of focusing on these science texts, these body texts. What have you learnt from the two extracts this week? So I will leave you to do that on your own. Note down, you can either mind map it or bullet point it. I would love to see, I'd love to find out what you've learnt, and hopefully everything that you've learnt is going to help us with our science learning for that science lesson on Friday. Thank you for joining the lesson.